All right, you are now live.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Hi, Amy. Thanks for joining us. So I'd like to call this meeting to order. It is February the 6th at 4:33 p.m. Before we get going, I'd like to acknowledge that the Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. So we'll do a quick roll call. I am here, Jackie Gahagan. Hannah, you are here. There you are. Councillor Hinch,
I am here.
welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Councillor Hartling,
Hi, I'm also here.
thanks for joining us. Cheryl Kopach,
I'm here as well.
thank you. And Rhiannon, you are here.
Here.
Thank you, Rhiannon. Cheryl Murphy, you are here.
I am.
Thank you, Cheryl. And we have regrets from Liz, Doreen, Zoe, and Sonia. I'd like to acknowledge the following staff members. If you can just say, hello, I'm here. Tracy, is Tracy here?
Tracy actually hasn't joined. I think Carla mentioned she got caught in another meeting and probably won't be able to make it today.
Yeah, she sends her regrets.
Thanks for that. And Amy.
Hi, everyone.
Carla.
I am here.
Thank you, Carla. And Elizabeth MacDonald.
Here.
Thank you. Okay, so let's get started then. We're going to start with item 1.1, and I'm going to turn the floor over to Legislative Assistant Elizabeth MacDonald to walk us through this process. And just before we get started, Elizabeth, I know you and I had talked about this previously, just to remind people about their terms and what that means for putting their name forward for either chair or vice chair.
Yeah, so I don't know. I did send out kind of an email about if anyone was a little bit unsure about their term to reach out to our public appointments coordinator. But anyone who is currently on the committee can put their name forward as chair. It doesn't matter when your term ends. And the other kind of caveat to that is that there's a very good chance that you may serve past your term if another member is not appointed in your place when your term is due to end.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
All right. On that note, I will open the floor for nominations for the position of chair. Reminder, you can nominate another member or you can self-nominate. I will call a second time for nominations for the position of chair of the Women and Gender Equity Advisory Committee. And I will call a third time for nominations for the position of chair of the committee. Reminder, you can self-nominate or you can nominate another committee member.
So I'm going to nominate Jackie.
And do I have a seconder for that motion?
I will second it.
Cheryl and Cheryl. Okay. And Jackie, do you accept that nomination?
I do accept that nomination.
Okay, perfect. So now we will just need a motion to appoint. So I will need a mover and a seconder for a motion to appoint Jackie Gahagan as chair of the Women and Gender Equity Advisory Committee. Thank you, Councillor Hartley.
I can second it. I need to.
All right. Now we will call for the question. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay.
Hi.
Aye.
Hi.
Fantastic. Congratulations, Jackie. You are the chair of the Women and Gender Equity Advisory Committee.
Thank you. very
So
much.
for 1.2, the annual election of vice chair, either I can run that part of the election or the chair can run it. It's kind of up to you if you'd like to run the election of that or if you'd prefer that I do it.
I'm happy to help. So can we go ahead and open the floor then for nominations for the role of vice chair?
Absolutely.
I'm going to nominate Doreen just because I know she was interested in this position.
Thanks, Hannah.
I will second that for Doreen.
Any other nominations? Seeing none, we have Doreen as put forward as vice chair. If we could put forward a motion that that Doreen is vice. Oh, sorry, Cheryl, were you asking a question?
No, I was just going to move that motion.
Okay, thank you.
Doreen be appointed vice chair for the committee.
Thank you, Cheryl. And could we have a seconder on that, please?
I can second it.
I'm not sure who that was.
Counselor Hinch.
Thank you, Counselor Hinch. Okay, so the motion is that that Doreen has been nominated as vice chair of the Women and Gender Equity Advisory Committee as of today.
I'll call the question.
Okay,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
motion carried. Oh, sorry, was there anybody who was counter? It looked like everybody's hand went up. Is that correct? Yes? Okay. So there's no one opposed. Okay, and no abstentions. Right. Okay, good. So motion carried. Thank you for that. Motion passes. So unbeknownst to Doreen, she's in. And can I just take a moment to say thank you to Hannah Jackson for being our vice chair. Very grateful to Hannah for serving in that role. I know, Hannah, you've got other things going on in your life beyond this committee, so I appreciate your dedication to the committee and the work that you've brought to the committee, and thank you for always being there as needed as our vice chair. So again, thank you for your ongoing support of this committee. Grateful to you for that. So thank you.
Thanks, Jackie.
So we'll move on then to item number 2 in your agenda, which is approval of the minutes from our meeting of January the 9th, 2025. Are there any errors or omissions of the minutes as circulated? So can we move to approve them then? Can I please have a?
I can move that.
Thank you, Hannah. So moved by Hannah. Could we have a seconder on that?
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Hartling. So the motion is that the minutes from January 9th, 2025 be approved as circulated. Call for the question.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, all in favor by show of hands or some other signal. Thank you. So any abstentions? Anyone not in favor? Okay. So that motion is carried. The minutes as circulated have been approved. Thank you. If we can move on then to item number 3, approval of the order of business and approval of additions and deletions. Over to you, please, Elizabeth. Are there any deletions or additions?
No additions or deletions have been received from the clerk's office.
Okay. So motion to approve the order of the agenda. Hannah, thank you. And seconded by Cheryl.
I'll second.
So Hannah and Cheryl, thank you for that. So that the agenda circulated as presented has been approved. All in favor? Anyone contrary minded? Anyone abstaining? Okay, great. So that motion carries. The agenda as presented has been adopted. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 4, business arising out of the minutes. It's my understanding there's no business arising out of the minutes. Is that correct, Elizabeth?
Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 5, any call for declaration of conflict of interest? Any members are in conflict of interest, please put your hand up. So there's no conflicts of interest to declare. Thank you. Moving on to item number 6, consideration of deferred business. It's my understanding that there's no deferred business. Is that correct, Elizabeth?
Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 7, correspondence, petitions, and delegations. 7.1. Elizabeth, was there any correspondence received in the clerk's office?
No correspondence was received by the clerk's office.
We feel very lonely. We would like some correspondence, please. Thank you. 7.2, petitions. Elizabeth, are there any petitions that have been received by the clerk's office?
No petitions have been received.
Thank you. 7.3, presentations. There are no external presentations on today's agenda. Is that correct, Elizabeth?
Yeah.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 8, information items brought forward. It's my understanding that there are no information items brought forward. Is that correct, Elizabeth?
Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 9, 9.1, staff. Is there anything from staff at this point? And Amy, I kind of have a question for you, but you go ahead.
Yeah, sure, Jackie. No updates on this end from the Safe City and Safe Public Spaces program. Well, this wasn't on the agenda, but I'll let you folks know what I just came from, so you get a little bit of a sense of some of the work. We just completed a training with library staff around understanding the issue of commercial sexual exploitation, and I know it's something that's been of interest to the committee in the past, and so great training and really engaged group of folks who are working directly with youth. So that's an update, but that wasn't on the agenda. So yes, go ahead, Jackie, any question you have.
Thanks for that. So this is about one of the items in our work plan, so it kind of segues nicely into the next item, but it's around the how HRM makes determinations about what crosswalks require additional safety measures. So in other words, we know that there was a recent death of a student who was killed in a crosswalk. We've also had some concerns and complaints about the lack of a proper safety crossing at Dalhousie, or not at Dalhousie, rather at Mount St. Vincent University coming off the Bedford Highway. So I've had a number of people reach out to me saying like, hey, what is your committee doing about this? And I just wanted to check in to see if there's if you've got some advice for people that reach out to me asking about safety issues in crosswalks in HRM. And I know that's putting you on the spot, but I'd be very happy to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, thank you, Jackie.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead,
Oh,
Councillor.
I didn't know. No, I didn't know if they were directing that towards the counselors or to yourself, or maybe you know more. Amy, I don't, if you want to go take it on first, then that's great. If I can follow through, I will try to do that.
Yeah, sounds good, Councillor Hinge. What I'll share is that would definitely not be my area of expertise in terms of the prioritization of areas for like the sidewalk additional safety measures. But I will say that that is something that comes up quite often in, as you folks might know, part of the work in the Safe City and Safe Public Spaces program are the community safety assessments that we facilitate. Which look at all sorts of things around safety in the built environment and in social environment in our public spaces. Crosswalks and like signage and those kinds of things often come up in those assessments when we're in a space that is either adjacent to or includes a crosswalk. And so on our end, what we're able to do with that information when we do receive it in a community safety assessment is to pass it along to the relevant staff who may have some role to play in a decision around that in that particular area. But I do think, and counselors can speak to it as well, maybe in more depth, but I do think that could be a potential opportunity for the committee to invite a staff member who would be able to speak to that potentially. So that's a future possibility. And we could help with that.
Thank you for that, Amy. And I see Councillor Hinch, you wanted to add to that conversation.
No, I totally agree with what she's saying, and we can get staff to come in and have a conversation. That would be great. This is something that's definitely an issue in my district, even in Councillor White's district as well. Probably all over. But I definitely see what they're saying about when it comes to Mount St. Vincent and crossing the highway.
Yeah.
It does need, it definitely does need some security measures there for sure. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Councillor Hinch. And I'll just add a little bit of a further complexion to it. There's a large development being constructed up on Seton Road, which means that road coming off the Bedford Highway is going to become more of a kind of a secondary highway. And the concern is, as I understand it, that HRM and the planners will not be addressing this issue of the crosswalk by, eventually 5 years, I think, down the road, they'll have a new stoplights, etc. But for the interim, with trucks coming and going off the Bedford Highway up Seton Road, it's actually quite dangerous, particularly for individuals that have mobility issues or low vision issues, because they can't see necessarily the large vehicles turning onto campus or off campus onto the Bedford Highway. So this has been flagged as a significant issue, and it's interesting I think for this committee in that Mount St. Vincent University is historically known as the only women's university in Nova Scotia, and yet we have this issue with the crosswalk. So I know it's complicated because there's a development happening, but I often will get asked questions about what are we doing about this issue, or what, not we as in this committee, but what are we doing in HRM to address this issue? So I just wanted to bring it forward. So I think Amy's suggestion about having a staff member come to a future meeting to talk about this would be good. I think there's lots of hope that the issue will be addressed, before the 4 or 5 year term that it's going to take to build that subdivision happens. So, other thoughts on this issue? Yes, Councillor Murphy, go ahead. Cheryl Murphy, go ahead.
I'm just kind of grinning here because when I graduated there in 1980 from Mount St. Vincent, it wasn't any better in terms of trying to get across the street then and now, and that's a long time ago. So,
Yeah. Cheryl, I agree with you. When I went to school there, it wasn't any better. And I work on the Bedford Highway, so I see every day how unsafe it is on that whole strip for anybody trying to cross, especially anybody with mobility issues. Like I'm honestly using a cane right now. When I have to walk across the street with a cane, it's like playing Frogger, and it's really not safe.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thanks for that additional input. So if we can please note in the minutes an action, which is to invite a staff member to come to a future meeting to talk about this issue. And it's, again, this is about, looking at issues that affect women in HRM. And I think definitely there's a significant issue around sidewalk safety, and the sad news of the recent death of a Dalhousie University student in a marked crosswalk is telling. I think that is a huge safety issue. So thank you for that. Thank you, Amy, for indulging me. So if we can move on then to item 9.1.1, which is discussion of the 2024 work plan. And really the purpose of this discussion is to A, to look at what we've accomplished in the last year, and then B, to look at what our objectives are going forward in terms of what we'd like to accomplish in 2025. And just to preface this conversation with when we had a conversation about how ambitious our work plan is, and noting that we get together for an hour and a half once a month, my caveat is that we think about which component parts going forward are feasible and doable, and really focus on those objectives for 2025. I know there's lots of pieces in the 2024 work plan that we're all still really invested in, and that's totally fine. So I don't want to suggest that those items are not important, but in terms of moving specific objectives forward in 2025 and determining what we want to accomplish in 2025, I think it's important to balance both our capacity as well as staff's capacity to move those items forward. So just a little cautionary tale. So with that said, I think you've seen the work plan that was circulated. It was circulated by Elizabeth as part of the package for today's meeting. So if you could please just pull up that. It's item 9.1.1. It's the revised women. Actually, it still calls us the Women's Advisory Committee, but it's the Women and Gender Equity Advisory Committee. Just to remember, we have a specific mandate, and if you're in need of sort of a refresher on that, which I just needed to go back and read that. Please have a look at the administrative order, because again, part of what we're trying to do is remain true to what our administrative order says we should be doing, versus things that we may think would be important to do, but may fall outside our administrative order. So again, the overarching purpose of this committee is really looking at women and gender equity issues, and we're meant to be providing advice on a variety of issues. And I'm not going to go through all of it, but please do keep an eye out on the administrative order, which will sort of frame our work plan going forward. So I'm going to stop there and open it up for discussion. The first item that I'd like us to think about is what our accomplishments have been in 2024, and then we can talk about where we want to go in 2025. So I'll stop there and open it to maybe we'll start with priority 1, which is health, safety, wellness, and quality of life facing women, with particular emphasis on marginalized women. And you'll see under that priority number 1, sub-priorities. The first sub-priority under that is gender-based violence, etc. I'm not going to go through each one of them because you have that in front of yourselves. So thoughts on accomplishments for 2024, and if this is an item that we want to consider moving forward on in 2025. So that will just help frame the conversation. I do have a speakers list. I can stick to my speakers list, or people can just do this by putting your hand up if you've got specific areas that you want to flag, either as accomplishments in 2024 or items that you think are quite pressing and should be considered for 2025. So the first, poor Hannah. Hannah, you're the first person on my speakers list. So I don't know, if you don't feel comfortable going first, we can move on to the next person on the list, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I can attempt to go first. In terms of what we accomplished, I feel like we in 2024 spent the first part of it figuring out what our values were as a group, since we had some new members come on, and then we got our group and are in a good position now to move forward and be super productive. So I see that as like a really good thing coming from 2024. Well, it took us a little bit to figure out our work plan. Now that we figured it out and we kind of solidified what's important to the group members, I'm excited to see what's going to be happening. I know I won't be a part of this committee for very much longer, but I am excited to see what is coming down the pipeline.
Amazing. Thanks, Hannah. Appreciate that. You're absolutely right. We did spend a lot of time reworking and reconsidering what was in our giant work plan. And part of it was, can we accomplish all of this? And the other part was, does it all fit within our within our remit? So you're right. We did spend a lot of time processing that, but I agree, and I hope that we will all be super productive going forward. So thanks for that. Appreciate that. Cheryl, you're next.
So, okay, so I am fairly new to this committee, so the whole, I really don't have a whole lot of perspective on the 2024 season because I just came in and just started getting briefed and starting to learn the work plan. I, a lot, as with Hannah, like really appreciate that time that we spent kind of working through that plan and seeing if it was logistical, like achievable within the year. And I'm feel like we're in the right position now to start moving forward. So I'm excited about the plan as we move forward this year. So I will try and add in some context if there's things that I see, but I really haven't had a whole lot of exposure from the 2024 season.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for that, Cheryl. And Liz is not with us. So Rhiannon, over to you for your thoughts, accomplishments, and where you think we should be headed in 2025.
Yeah, thank you, Jackie.
Mm.
A couple things I'm thinking of. I think one of the accomplishments was having kind of when I started back, whenever that was, May or June, having those conversations about the name of the committee and kind of what this committee represents or should represent, and you know we've been moving towards like a more women and gender equity based lens, and I think that that's a pretty big win. And I think stemming from that, we've had a lot of conversations around just like what does gender equity look like in practice, in policies or structures, different things. So less kind of like concrete actions from there, but I've appreciated all of the like presentations we've had and the discussions we've had about how issues of like gender and specifically also women's issues impact different aspects of like municipal work or life. Yeah, so I think those are great. I also think in general, if I'm looking through this list, one of the things that kind of stands out for me personally, I really appreciated the presentation on housing from the three planners who came, I think in December. And, you know, looking at these kind of housing and food security for women in HRM subcategories, that's where some of I mean, housing is like, you know, it's here. It's not going away. It is a forever issue right now, and I would like to see that be kind of one of our priorities over the next year. Probably honing in or focusing on something more specific, but that realm is speaking to me, and also just policy stuff speaks to me. Trend alert, but like, you know, we've been talking about it. We've been thinking about it. How is like GBA plus applied or could be applied? That stuff I find deeply interesting. Thank you.
Thanks, Rhiannon. That's great. So, you know, yes, so conversations about the name of the committee and rethinking what the committee is meant to achieve. So that I 100% agree. And then conversations about, you know, what does gender equity actually mean in the work of HRM and how that happens. And I agree, there's some great presentations on gender and women's issues in HRM. And going forward, as I understood what you said, is sort of the, you know, the presentation on housing has led to kind of this is a perpetual issue, not just in HRM here, but it's a perpetual issue elsewhere, and that should be part of our focus for 2025. And I also appreciate the policy focus approaches like GBA plus. So yes, policy is also music to my ears. Thanks for that, Rhiannon. I hope I captured that. I mean, it'll be captured in the minutes, but I hope okay, thank you. Great. Cheryl Murphy, over to you.
Well, I am I'm really think that the presentations that we've had, the various presentations that we've had over the last year, have provided us good information uh, about how to proceed, right? And how what staff, what's already in place, and what staff is looking to put in place. So I think we're in a good position now to respond when like when staff sends us things, when uh, we get questions from the public. I think we're just better situated to do that now. And in terms of what we should be doing going forward, I think that the priorities and the subcategories have not gone away, and they need more work.
Thank you for that. It's true, they have not gone away. That's great. Thank you, Cheryl. So, great presentations, lots of great information on how to proceed and what's, staff looking at, that we're better situated now to move forward. And I think that's a great and important observation. And then the priorities are still the priorities. You're right. They haven't gone away. So that's sage advice. Thank you for that. Doreen is not here and Zoe's not here. So, over to you, Councillor Hinch, please. You're next on our speakers list.
So, so one of my, what I want to know is, because, I sit on the Board of Police as well. So one of my concerns is, are things being addressed when it comes to HRP and how they deal with certain situations within the community with regards to gender-based violence, women violence, that type of thing. So I'm new to this board. I don't know exactly what's all been going on. And this is my first time being on this type of board, to be honest with you. And so, yeah, so that's my question. Have you guys had presentations or meetings with HRP?
Yeah, so the HRP piece is that's a really good question, and I'm trying to think on whether or not we've had. Yeah, Rhiannon.
I think it was this group had something on hate crimes. Maybe that was another group. Was that here?
That escapes me, and I don't want to
Okay.
put Elizabeth on the spot, but Elizabeth.
Okay, then somewhere else they have talked to me about
I
that.
think it may have been another group.
So would that be something that you guys would be interested in to have those conversations?
Yeah, I for sure, Councillor Hinch, that's great. Going forward in 2025, the issue of how police handle or address issues of gender-based violence, for example. Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion for 2025. And I see Cheryl Murphy is giving me the hand. Go ahead, Cheryl.
Oh, I take my hand off my space bar now, so I can't talk, right? The other thing that I would be really interested in, and it's come up in through my church, is where it's come up, is human trafficking. And my church is in Cole Harbour, and I'll just say that I'm going to give a little bit of a ad here on Saturday, next Saturday, not the 8th, but the 15th. The church is having a workshop on human trafficking with the intent that young folks as well as old folks attend to learn about the signs of human trafficking. And the reason that it's come up for our church is that Cole Harbour and Toronto are the two highest. Toronto and Cole Harbour are the two highest areas of human trafficking.
Wow.
That is Isn't that crazy?
That is
Wow.
crazy.
Not HRM. It's not Halifax. It's Cole
Oh,
Harbor.
Hartford.
Oh, okay. So, so Cheryl Murphy, what I'm taking from that is that we may want to have a presentation on human trafficking, if that
Mhm.
is, okay. Thank you for
Yep.
that.
And if
And
anybody wants the details on the workshop, just email me. Yeah.
okay, thank you
Mhm.
for that, Cheryl. Over to the other Cheryl, please. I see your hand is up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jackie. Just while she was speaking about human trafficking, that is such a huge issue for Indigenous populations, especially young Indigenous women. So I fully support that because we've actually had situations at our Mi'kmaq Friendship Center where some of our young women leaving some of our youth programs have been propositioned trying to be recruited into the prostitution area. So it's a very, very important issue. And I think it's something that we can look at as a group along with HRP. The other thing I would actually like to see is some type of work or looking or seeing how we could do wellness checks, especially among Indigenous people. We've had a number of incidents where we've had Indigenous people die with wellness checks. And it's gotten to a point now that our Indigenous people aren't calling for help anymore. They're actually trying to develop their own system where they can have a sign on the door. If I'm here for a wellness check, please call this person or this person. Don't call the police. But it's definitely, there's definitely work to be done and collaborations between HRP, especially advancing women's issues. Thank you.
Thanks for that. So, Councillor Hinch and Cheryl Kopaj, I'm understanding that having a presentation related to two things that involve Halifax Police is one is obviously human trafficking, and the other one I'm hearing is around wellness checks, and then specifically looking at the impact for Indigenous women around human trafficking and Indigenous populations with respect to wellness checks. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's something that is almost with any culture, but definitely an Indigenous kind of folk lens on it. But it happens with African Nova Scotian populations, and so I think we kind of have to have that holistic view on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. Amy, over to you, please.
I'll just share a couple of things that might be of interest to the committee. So thinking about like maybe potential presentations. We did at one point have, I believe, both the Integrated Human Trafficking Unit speak to the committee. So it'd be a matter of like looking back at the recordings to see, well, if it was a recorded meeting. I can't quite remember if it was an in-person or online, but I guess we'd have the audio recording if it was in person, which might provide a little bit of like, could spark some thinking around what exactly we want to hear about and the questions that you folks might have. But it would also always be good to kind of have like an updated presentation from more recently. I think we could also speak on our end. So, as you folks probably know, like the issue of human trafficking and sexual exploitation, there's like many different sort of angles that need to be taken to prevent human trafficking and sexual exploitation and to respond to. So we could share a little bit about the work that we're doing on our end in terms of, the training with staff. We're working frontline with youth. And we're also, we just finished, well, I shouldn't say finished, we had kind of our first draft of a project that we've been working on to look at the services that we currently provide for youth in HRM and what those staff on the ground are experiencing in terms of like the gaps or what they're seeing in terms of the needs of the youth that they're supporting through the lens of sexual exploitation. So that could be like another, you could have many presentations on that issue, I think, but that could be another piece that we could share. I think the other thing that could be possible, within community, I don't know, and this might be repetitive, but within community safety, like the Safe City program is underneath the Programs and Partnerships Division, and then we also work really closely with the Research and Development Division, which is led by Amy Siciliano, the Public Safety Advisor. We could potentially consider, Amy's presented to the committee on multiple occasions, but our office is the community safety more broadly has been tasked with some of the work around broadening the spectrum of responses to some of the calls that police are currently responding to, but may not be the best fit for those responses. And so we have been working with police and many other partners around developing out this community crisis diversion service. So a presentation with some information about that, but also like the other parts of work that community safety is working on could be another sort of supportive information for you folks to consider, I guess.
Yeah, I think that would be great, Amy. Thank you for suggesting that. And we did have I can't remember the date, but the Human Trafficking Committee talked to us about this issue. But to your point, I think it would be good for the committee to go back and listen to that conversation based on that presentation, and then maybe from there come up with a specific ask for additional content or an updated presentation. So if we can make a note of that as an action in the minutes, that would be great. And having Amy, the public safety advisor, back again would be great. I think this, obviously, there's seems to be a lot of support so far around the table for this particular issue of human trafficking. And I think that's definitely something that for the 2025 work plan, we want to dig into. Thanks for those suggestions, Amy. Councillor Hartling, you're next on the list, and I see you've got your hand up, so the floor is yours.
Good. Thank you very much. Wow, these are some great topics. Certainly not, what can I say? These are all worth talking about, and I'm so excited to be on this committee to learn more and be receptive. The one idea that I would like to bring to the table is women and gender equity in sport and access to recreation. I think that is something that is very often overlooked, and given that it is in the municipalities' purview, and it is our responsibility to think about recreation and recreation services, I would like to see that addressed with a gender-based lens.
Great. Recreation services in HRM, and a look at gender equity for HRM in terms of
Yeah.
Great. That's fantastic. Thank you for that. Any other comments you wanted to make at this point, Councillor Hartling?
No, other than, thank you so much for bringing those ideas to the table. That was not what I was expecting to hear today. So that's amazing. Thank you very much, everyone.
Great. Thanks for joining us. Amy, I don't know if that's a legacy hand or a new hand.
Oh my gosh, sorry folks. I didn't even know my hand was up.
It's okay. And I think
Sorry about that.
That's okay, Amy, no problem. Cheryl Murphy, you had your hand up.
If we're talking about things to look at in 2025 and not increase our work plan, and maybe this is something that we can look at in 2026 is female seniors and their ability, because I'm a senior myself, but female seniors and their ability to translate our world today, including the need to be computer savvy, including changing banking arrangements, including even at the grocery store, it's different today for senior women, and I just I think that's something that we should have a look at, and how perhaps some training sessions or some and I mean that could be offered through our recreation programs too, but some things to help senior women navigate.
Thank you for that, Cheryl. So sort of addressing the digital divide for older women. That's I think there are probably programs and services in HRM that do that already, and I can't think of them off the top of my head. So that's definitely something that will be noted. If we can't cover that in 2025, the digital divide is not going anywhere. In fact, it's probably going to keep growing. So there will be a generational divide around that. So female seniors and being able to connect to the world around them and looking at issues of digital divide. Great, thank you for that. And Amy, I think that's a new hand.
It is a new hand, yeah. Sorry, folks. There's just so much that you're talking about that I think really intersects with a lot of things that have been top of mind on our end lately too. So I could reach out if folks were interested. My colleague Frances Tufford, who works on Amy Siciliano's team, is leading some work right now around developing a senior safety strategy. And so it's sort of tangential, I think, to what you're speaking to, Cheryl. In the past, when we've been working on like these kinds of strategies, staff have like come to the committee as like part of the engagement to inform the development of those strategies. So if the committee was interested, I could ask my colleague Frances if she would be willing to come to the committee for an engagement on the strategy.
Yeah, I think that's great. So the developing a senior safety strategy and having somebody come to present on that, I think that would be great. And Rhiannon, thank you for putting in the chat. Check out Geo Nova Scotia. So for people that don't know, Geo Nova Scotia is funded through social services in part to address the digital divide, particularly when COVID happened and people were told stay home, don't go out. And for people that didn't have access to the internet or have a cell phone, this was a significant issue. So Geo Nova Scotia, Get Everyone Online Nova Scotia provides all kinds of stuff for access to technology. And interestingly, Rhiannon, if I can add to that, in one of the projects I'm leading that's focused on former youth in care who are struggling to get into or complete post-secondary education, they also are helping former youth in care who don't have cell phones, may not have high-speed internet, and can't get to class, and they live in rural areas. So Geo Nova Scotia has done some really incredible work, and I didn't know that they also offer programs for seniors, but it's my understanding is it's based on income, so individuals who are rural, remote, lower income, seniors, students, etc. Geo Nova Scotia has done a fantastic job in linking people up with technologies that they need to get online. So yeah, they're fantastic. And I don't know if we want to have a presentation from the director of that program, but and I can't remember his name, but he's lovely and just really kind of talks about the significance that digital divide has for everybody, but particularly for what are commonly referred to maybe inappropriately as vulnerable populations who don't have access to technology. Rhiannon, did you want to add anything to that?
No, you summed it up great. In my work life, we have interactions with Geo Nova Scotia. I just believe in what they do. They assist with similar things, helping in my case, queer newcomers access devices, internet, phone that they might not be able to access otherwise.
Yeah. So fabulous program, and it's funded through the province of Nova Scotia. So it's not an HRM program; it's a provincial program. But obviously, there are individuals in HRM who have benefited from Geo Nova Scotia. So maybe we could put that as a future action to invite the director of. Do you remember his name, Rhiannon? No.
I didn't meet with the director. I met with one of the community navigators.
Okay. So let's put that on our to-do list for this year and have them come and talk about that issue, which might feed in nicely to Cheryl Murphy's question about female seniors and being connected to the world around, which necessitates having some literacy around digital technologies, etc. So thank you for that. Amy, back to you.
Sorry, folks. I don't know why it's not clicking tonight that I have to lower my hand, but that was not a new hand. I apologize.
That's okay. That's okay. Just thought I'd check in with you. Okay, so I'm just gonna recap if I may. So I agree with what has been said so far. So I'm not going to repeat all the great ideas that you've already come up with, but the human trafficking, particularly the impact on Indigenous women, wellness checks among Indigenous or other populations in HRM, having presentations on housing. So again, an update in 2025 on that. And then specifically looking at policy focused approaches like GBA Plus. And I know there are a number of us around the table who are super interested in policy responses. And so that would be a great action oriented approach for 2025. Again, we heard about the importance of human trafficking, about female seniors being connected, and maybe looking at what's available in HRM to help with that. We also talked a little bit about the fact that the priorities listed in our work plan from last year have sadly not all gone away, which is to say there's still more work to be done on all of those. We also heard about the need to have presentations from police on gender-based violence, and we'll have that in the list of future actions and presentations. So thanks for that, Councillor Hinch. And then we also heard again about human trafficking and the need for maybe an updated presentation. We've had a previous presentation, as Amy pointed out, so maybe inviting, I don't know if it would be Public Safety Advisor Amy or if it would be somebody else that would come and present, but we'll have that on the to-do list. And then the other piece that we heard was women and gender equity in sport in HRM. So what does it mean for women and girls' access to recreational facilities and services in HRM? So I'm not sure who I'm just going to lean on you, Amy, but who do you think would be able to come and present on the issue of recreation services in HRM? And that sort of, has anybody done a gender equity analysis?
Yeah, I could definitely connect you folks with the folks in recreation who could speak to that. There's actually specific inclusion and accessibility staff within Parks and Recreation, and I had gone to sorry if you're probably hearing, there's other folks in the office right now, but I had gone to a conference hosted by Recreation Nova Scotia, who had folks from across HRM teams, as well as folks from community organizations, and who were looking specifically at this issue that you mentioned, Councillor Hartling, around inclusion and equity for girls in sport and recreation. So there's definitely been conversations about it, but it would be great to hear from those staff to hear more about that work.
Yeah, so let's put that on our work plan for this year, have somebody from HRM Sports and Rec come and talk about that. That would be fantastic. And I think Cheryl Murphy, your hand was up first, and then we'll go to the other Cheryl. You're sitting right beside each other on my screen. So Cheryl Murphy, we'll start with you.
Okay, I'm now on to page 6 of 9 and regarding the involvement of HRM governance, and particularly in Indigenous and racialized women. I think it's a real good opportunity because we have 2 new members of council that are female on this committee to have some input from those new members, perhaps on what they're finding in terms of barriers, if any, and to talk about issues surrounding women. What are the issues surrounding women in government? Okay.
Right. Thank you for that, Cheryl Murphy. Yes, Cheryl, go ahead.
So mine is just a really information piece, just kind of because we were talking about sports and sports with women. This is specifically around Indigenous. The Mi'kmaq Friendship Centers, they have staff. Every community has staff people. They're called MPOWs, Mi'kmaq Physical Activity Leaders. And they're having an open summit tomorrow. So if anybody's interested in attending and finding more about Indigenous young females in hockey and how they can be supported. There is an Indigenous hockey mini summit going on at the Friendship Center there tomorrow, starting at 8:45 on Brunswick Street. And they have Indigenous hockey players from Team Canada and other big major sports teams coming to be there. So they actually will get to meet Indigenous women that actually made it through and are now playing on professional hockey teams or Team Canada and that. So it's a great opportunity. If anybody wants to pop by, any of the counselors, I will be there. So at least you know me when you come in and to say hi, and we can talk with some of these individuals.
That sounds so much more fun than budget.
You could sneak out and come join us at our little hockey summit, and then I'll send you back to budget.
That's fantastic.
Thank you for the invite.
Cheryl, do you
It
know
does sound
if,
amazing, though.
Pardon?
Cheryl, do you know if any HRM recreation folk are going to be?
I'm not sure. Ryan from the province was handling all of the invites, so I guess I'll find out tomorrow. But I will share with the group here, like the agenda, anyways, if anybody wants to pop over.
Thanks for that, Cheryl 1 and Cheryl 2. Appreciate that. So can we go back to the top of the speakers list and just do a final check-in for thoughts and ideas, what we've accomplished and where we want to go in 2025. So Hannah, any further thoughts based on the conversation you've heard?
No, I have no further thoughts, but I'm excited for the committee.
Thanks, Hannah. And we've heard from Cheryl. Rhiannon, any further thoughts?
Just appreciative of how, cool and awesome everybody here is, and all the different like thoughts or opinions or experiences or sectors that people like live and work and play in, that we can all bring together here. Also, if we want to get more practical or specific, there is something specifically that I remembered about housing that I wanted to touch on.
Yeah.
When we did have that presentation, there was a piece of this, Jackie, you might have to remind me. There was a piece of it that talked about like a needs assessment survey on housing, and it had a number for like LGBTQ people, but like no kind of like actions or follow-ups around the really disproportionate number there was for that. So looking more into that specifically, I think would be great.
Yeah, I think if I recall, Rhiannon, it was a needs assessment and it was youth. It was focused on LGBTQ youth. So maybe a follow-up is just to see what were the actions associated with that. And I think I mean, if you look at the available national data, LGBTQ youth tend to be overrepresented in precariously housed or homeless, in part because they've been ejected from their families of origin. So yeah, I think what are the next steps for that question based on the presentation we had on housing? Okay, yeah.
I wonder if Phoenix Hills would have any numbers with that as well.
Yeah, for sure, Councillor Hinch. So the presentation was sort of looking at kind of a snapshot in time, if I recall correctly. And what was striking was in what they showed us, there was a huge overrepresentation of LGBTQ youth. And to Rhiannon's point, I honestly don't recall if they said, and here's what we're going to do about this overrepresentation. It was sort of just presented as a fact. And I think what we might want to push for is a little bit like what are the actions out of that, and how could this committee help? So if that means, writing to fill in the blank person about what's happening. And this is not about saying that Phoenix is not doing a great job, because Phoenix is definitely doing a great job and they're doing an amazing amount of work with the resources they have. But it's the bigger picture, like what is HRM specifically doing to address the needs of homeless LGBT.
We're not doing enough as far as I'm concerned.
I hear you. Cheryl, I see your hand.
Sure. Yep. So I just maybe wanted to add maybe another kind of context in there that we should maybe connect with, because they are players too in the homeless 2S LGBTQ organization as well. The Wabanaki Two-Spirit Alliance. I know they had secured funding before to build a shelter, and they were having real struggles with finding land and all of that. So it might be interesting, because they were approved for a large amount of money to build a shelter for the Two-Spirit and other transgender people, because they identified that as a gap as well. So it might be an opportunity to connect with the Two-Spirit Alliance sometimes and see what type of support work that they're doing from their perspective on helping the Indigenous population.
Thanks for that. And I did meet with John Sillaboy about
Yep.
this, and he did mention that they did receive the funding, and it's my understanding that they also received land. And I think that there was a big sort of social media posting about the fact that not only did they get the money, but they got the land, and I think they're going ahead with that. I think it's meant to be a housing, like
It is some type of housing, like for two-spirit individuals
Yeah.
that are either homeless or having homeless housing issues. I've met with John before, but I haven't had any updates on it recently. So, and I haven't seen anything kind of moving forward. So it might be a good time to follow up.
Yeah, no, that's good. So maybe we could put on our action either to invite John Sillaboy to talk about Wabanaki Two-Spirit Alliance and or give a presentation on what they're doing, because I think that speaks to Rhiannon's question about, you know, if you show us the numbers and say this is a crisis with this population, but we don't see necessarily what does that mean in terms of actions in HRM. So I think that will close the loop on that. Thank you for that. Okay. So I think, so Councillor Hinch, did you have additional thoughts on the way forward, or we can check in with you at the next meeting?
Let's check in at the next meeting. Yeah, I'm good.
Thank you, Councillor Hinch. And Councillor Hartling, any further thoughts?
No, thank you.
Okay, so we have a lot of moving pieces, and I guess the next step will be to look at what we've discussed relative to this 9-pager and see if we can actually add those as specific, I guess, specific additional actions for this year. That also requires us to look at performance indicators. So how are we going to know whether or not we achieved what we set out to do if we don't have performance indicators? So what I'd like to suggest is that we set some time aside for our next meeting to go through what will be, you'll see in the minutes from tonight's conversation, but if you could each sort of map what we talked about in terms of priority areas going forward onto the existing work plan. I think what we could do is modify what we have there with these additional pieces, but I would gently lean on each one of you to think about what are the desired outcomes and what are the performance indicators. So what I'm hoping we will not have is, and I mean this with all due respect, because we've had some really amazing presentations, but not just a lot of I don't know how to say this. I know this is being recorded, so let me try and rephrase that. So it's not just about the presentations, but it's about looking at our desired outcomes and our performance indicators and making sure that some of that actually is our responsibility and not just on staff and not just on presenters. If I can, does that sound okay? Are we okay with that? Okay, great. So that's the plan going forward. So if we are okay with that, you have your homework assignment for next time we get together. And I'm going to just move forward. Well, I mean, I've kind of done it slightly out of order, but I hope you're okay with the process that I use, because the next item is really discussion of past reports and presentations, and we've kind of already covered that. So unless we've missed something, and I know we've got a few new members with us today. Thank you to Councillor Hinch and Councillor Hartling for being with us today. But if there's anything else about past presentations or reports that we want to talk about now, please put your hand up and we'll have that conversation. Otherwise, I'd like to kind of close these two items if we're okay with that. So that would be 9.1.1 and 9.1.2. We're good. Everybody's ready for supper, I'm guessing, right? Getting close to supper time. Okay. All right, so we'll close off there. And I'm going to move us on to item number 10. So there were no added items. Elizabeth, just to confirm, there were no added items.
That's correct.
Thank you. And then I'm going to move us to item 11, date of our next meeting. You know, that is March the 6th. And I'm gonna put item 12 out, which is adjournment. And so if I could please have a mover on Hannah. Woo! Hannah nailed it. Hannah got it. Okay, so that's it for tonight. I know a couple of people needed to be somewhere for 6 o'clock, so you will get there for 6 o'clock and everybody else will get fed and watered and early time. So your homework assignment, please, if you can have a look at our work plan from last year and think about which component parts we're going to carry forward based on the conversation we had today. It will be captured in the minutes. I've also taken notes, so I will compare what I've scribbled down with what's in the minutes. So do a little bit of the what are the desired outcomes for each one of these. So if we're talking about housing issues, if we're talking about wellness checks, if we're talking about human trafficking, these are all fantastic ideas, but I'm going to challenge you a little bit in terms of desired outcomes and performance indicators. So please do go back to your work plan, and we'll have a further conversation about this next time we get together. Elizabeth, was there anything further from your perspective before we?
No, nothing further from me.
Okay, and just before we sign off, again, thank you, Hannah Jackson, for being our fabulous vice chair. We know you'll be sticking around for a bit. There'll be new people joining, as I understand it, in the next cycle. But for now, we still have Hannah in the house, so thank you for that. And then we also have Doreen, who has agreed to serve as vice chair going forward. So again, thank you everybody for being here, and I look forward to seeing you again in a month's time. Thank you.
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good night.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Noted.